Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Comeback Conversations. I'm really glad you're here for this one because I think it's an episode that's going to hit home for a lot of women listening. And today we're talking about how to build healthy habits when you're fed up of always being the one who puts yourself last. And honestly, if that sounds like you, I just want to say from the start, you're not lazy, you're not weak, and you're definitely not one of those. Well, you're definitely not the only one who feels like this because so many women, especially mums, especially women in their 40s and beyond, spend years being the one who keeps everything going. You're the organizer, the helper, the fixer. You're the one remembering everybody else's appointments, everybody else's needs, everybody else's food, everybody else's routines, everybody else's emotions. And somewhere along the way, your own needs just slowly slide further and further down the list. Not because you don't care, not because you don't want to feel better, but because life gets busy, people need you. And before you know it, you've become very good at showing up for everybody else and very inconsistent at showing up for yourself. And the frustrating thing is, it doesn't just affect your body, it affects your energy, your confidence, your mood, your patience, how you feel when you look in the mirror, how you feel when you get dressed, how you feel going on holiday, how you feel in photos, how you feel when summer starts getting closer and you suddenly realize you've spent another year saying, I'll sort myself out soon. So, if you've been feeling a bit fed up, a bit frustrated, a bit like you're sick of being the one who always puts yourself last, this episode is 100% for you. And today, I want to give you a really realistic, honest conversation around why this happens, why habits feel so hard to stick to when you're already stretched, and most importantly, how to actually start building healthy habits in a way that feels doable, not extreme. Because this is not going to be another just be more disciplined episode. That's not helpful. You do not need more guilt. You need a better way of looking at this. Why you keep putting yourself last? Let's start here. A lot of women think the reason they can't stick to healthy habits is because they lack motivation. They'll say things like, I know what I should be doing, I'm just not doing it. Or I start well, then I fall off. Or I'm great for a few days and then life gets in the way. And yes, on the surface, it can look like inconsistency. But underneath it, what's often really going on is this. You've built a life where everybody else just comes first by default. Your family, your children, your work, the house, your to-do list. Everyone else's problems come first. And your health gets whatever is left over. Whatever time is left, whatever energy is left, whatever patience is left. And usually that isn't much. So when that happens, you try to be healthy on top of everything else. You try to overhaul your food, start exercising 4 times a week, drink more water, get your steps in, sleep better, be more positive, and somehow do all of that while still being the same person everybody relies on. And it just becomes a bit too much. Well, way too much. Not because healthy habits don't work, but because the way you're trying to do them doesn't fit the reality of your life. And that is such an important point because if you've been blaming yourself, I want you to hear this properly. The problem is not that you're incapable of change. The problem is that you've probably been trying to change in the way that ignores how your life actually looks right now. And when women are used to putting themselves last, healthy habits often feel selfish. That's another truth we need to talk about. Even if you don't say it out loud, a lot of women feel guilty for taking time for themselves. They feel guilty going for a walk. They feel guilty going to the gym. They feel guilty sitting down and eating a proper meal. They feel guilty spending money on coaching or support. They feel guilty on doing anything that looks like choosing themselves. And yet the irony is, when you don't choose yourself at all, you'll just end up feeling worse and worse. You feel more drained, more resentful, more uncomfortable in your own body, less confident, more, well, even more disconnected from yourself. So, the first big shift I want you to make today is this: looking after yourself is not selfish, it's responsible. It is responsible because whether you feel better, When you feel better, you show up better. When your energy is better, everything else feels easier. When your confidence is better, your whole day changes. When you feel physically stronger and healthier, you cope with life better. This is not about becoming obsessed with yourself. It's about stopping the cycle of abandoning yourself. And that's different. Stop waiting for the perfect window. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is a trap so many women fall into, which is waiting for the right time. You tell yourself, I'll start when things calm down. I'll start after this busy week. I'll start after the holiday. I'll start after the kids' plans settle down. I'll start when I feel more motivated. I'll start next Monday. And trust me, I get it, but I've heard these all so many times. But because when life feels chaotic, the idea of starting something healthy can feel like one more thing to manage. But here's the reality. For most women, life does not suddenly become quiet enough for change to happen easily. There is always something. There's always a birthday, something to do with school, work stress, family plans, tiredness, hormones, low mood, poor sleep, the weather, an event coming up, something unexpected, the list goes on. So if you're waiting for the perfect window, you can just end up waiting forever. And this is where so many people get stuck. They think they need a fresh start, but actually what they need is a messy start. A normal start, a realistic start, a start that works when even life is busy. Because healthy habits are not built in perfect weeks. They're built in real life. They're built in the school run weeks, the stressful work weeks, the tired weeks, the hormonal weeks, the I really can't be bothered, but I'm doing something anyway weeks. That's where real change happens. So rather than asking yourself, when will life calm down enough for me to do this properly? A better question is, what can I do even with the life I have now? That question changes everything because it takes you out of the all or nothing thinking. It stops you waiting for ideal conditions and essentially it puts you back in control. Start with identity, not intensity. Now let's get into the practical side. If you want to build healthy habits that actually last, you need to stop starting with intensity. What most people do is this. They get frustrated, they hit a point where they feel uncomfortable, maybe summer's coming up, maybe they've seen photos of themselves, maybe they're fed up of their clothes feeling tight, maybe they're just tired of not feeling like themselves. And then the frustration makes them want to go big. So they think, right, that's it. No more rubbish food. I'm going to train 5 days a week. I'm cutting everything out. I'm going to be really good now. But the problem is, going big feels exciting for about 3 days. And then guess what? Real life shows up. And because the plan was too intense, it collapses. And then you feel like you failed again. So instead, what I want you to think about is this. Healthy habits stick when they become part of who you are, not just something you're trying to force. Rather than saying, I need to lose weight, start with, I want to become someone who looks after herself. That is powerful because someone who looks after herself drinks water, moves her body, makes time for meals, gets support, keeps promises to herself more often, and stops speaking to herself like she's a failure. Make choices based on care, not punishment. That identity matters because habits become easier when they feel like evidence of the person you're becoming. So when you go for a 15-minute walk, that's not hardly anything. That is evidence you're building. When you eat a decent breakfast instead of skipping it, that's evidence. When you do one workout instead of none, that is evidence. When you go to bed a bit earlier, that is evidence. You are proving to yourself, I'm becoming someone who takes care of herself. That is how habits are built. Not through one perfect week, but through repeated evidence. Pick habits that reduce stress, not add to it. This is where I think, again, a lot of women go wrong. They pick habits that sound really good on paper, but don't suit them. And then they wonder why they can't stick to them. So I want you to remember this. The best healthy habit is not the most impressive one. It's the one that you can actually keep doing. That might mean a 20-minute walk instead of a 60-minute gym session. That might mean 3 structured meals instead of trying to eat perfectly. That might mean 8,000 steps instead of 15,000. That might mean 2 workouts a week consistently instead of 5 for 1 week and then nothing for 2 weeks. That might mean meal planning, simple meals instead of trying to cook fancy healthy recipes every night. That might mean going to bed 30 minutes earlier instead of trying to completely fix your sleep overnight. The goal is not to build the hardest plan. The goal is to build a plan that works when you're tired, busy, hormonal, emotional, and short on time. That's the real test. Ask yourself, what habit would make the biggest difference to me right now? What habit feels realistic for this season of life? What habit would make me feel more in control? For some women, the answer is walking. For some, it's eating breakfast. For some, it's stopping the evening cooking. For some, it's finally doing some strength training. For some, it's simply drinking more water and creating a bit more structure during the day. Keep it simple. Simple is not weak, simple is smart. The power of non-negotiables. One of the things I talk about a lot with women I work with is having a few basic non-negotiables, and we'll set these every week. Not 10, not 20, not a huge checklist that just becomes far too overwhelming. Just a few things that anchor your week. Because when life feels busy, habits become easier when you don't have to keep making decisions. For example, your non-negotiables might be 8 to 10,000 steps a day, 2 litres of water, protein with each meal, 2 strength sessions a week, a walk after dinner 3 times a week, filling in your habit tracker daily, not skipping breakfast, going to bed before a certain time. They do not need to be glamorous. They just need to be clear, because clear habits create consistency, and consistency creates confidence. That's a huge point as well. A lot of women think confidence comes after they lose weight, but actually, confidence often starts building before the body changes much, because you start keeping promises to yourself again. You start proving to yourself that you can trust yourself. You start getting that feeling of, actually, I'm doing this, and that matters so much. So if you're someone who feels like she's always starting over, I would really encourage you to ask, what are 2 to 4 healthy habits I want to make non-negotiable for this month? Not forever, this month, and keep it focused. Make it easier to succeed. The next thing is environment. If you want to build better habits, you have to make them easier. You cannot rely on just willpower alone, especially if you're already mentally tired. So think about how you can reduce friction. If you want to walk in the morning, put your trainers by the door. If you want to eat better during the day, stop leaving yourself with no food, then expecting yourself to make amazing food choices when you're starving. And honestly, this works for me. If you want to stop evening snacking, make sure you've actually eaten enough through the day. If you want to work out after work, what days you're doing and what the plan is, know that. If you want to drink more water, keep the bottle in sight. If you want to be more consistent, stop making everyday decisions in the moment. Set things up in advance. You do not rise to the level of your intentions. You tend to fall to the level of your systems. And that is why habits work so much better when they're supported by your environment. And also, this is a big one. Stop making the healthy choice the hardest choice. If every good choice requires loads of effort, planning, thought, and energy, you'll struggle to keep it going. Make healthier easier. Make it more obvious, more convenient, more automatic. That is how busy women win. Not by trying harder every day, but by by making it simpler to do the right things. Now, what to do when you have a bad day? Let's talk about what happens when it goes wrong, because it will. You'll have a bad day, a stressful day, a low energy day, a day where you eat more than planned, a day where you miss a workout, a day where you think, what is the point and why am I doing this? That does not mean you've ruined it. And I think this is one of the most important mindset shifts when building healthy habits. A bad day is not a reason to abandon the week. I'm going to say that again. A bad day is not a reason to abandon the week. So many women do this. They overeat at lunch, so the evening goes through the window too. They miss Monday, so the whole week becomes, I'll start again next week. They have a weekend off track, so they spend Sunday night full of guilt and planning another extreme Monday. But real progress is built by recovering quickly, not by being perfect. So when something goes wrong, the question is not, why am I like this? The question is, what is the next best thing I can do? That might be drink some water, go for a walk, have a decent dinner, get back to your usual breakfast tomorrow. Do the next workout, go to bed earlier, or just stop the spiral. You don't need to punish yourself, you need to return to yourself. That is such a different mindset. You probably need support more than you need information. Now, I really want to be honest here. A lot of women do not need more tips. They already know quite a lot. They know they should move, eat better, drink more water, strength train, be consistent. Usually the issue is not information. Usually the issue is applying it consistently when life gets hard. And that is exactly why support matters. Because when you're the one who always puts yourself last, left to your own devices, you will often keep slipping back into old patterns. Not because you don't care, but because your default setting is to look after everybody else first. Support interrupts that. Accountability interrupts that. Structure interrupts that. Having someone in your corner saying, right, let's simplify this. Let's focus on what matters. Let's keep going. Let's not throw the week away. That makes a huge difference. And this is why I always say to women, you don't need to do this all on your own. You really don't. In fact, for a lot of women, trying to do it alone is exactly why they've stayed stuck for so long. What healthy habits can actually give you? Let's zoom out for a second, because healthy habits are not just about the habits. They're about what those habits give you. They can give you more energy day to day, better mood, more patience, more confidence, more comfort in your clothes, a stronger body, better photos, more control around food, less guilt, less I'll start Monday, less feeling like you completely lost yourself. And for so many women I work with, that's the real win. Yes, fat loss matters. Yes, the body confidence matters. Yes, looking better for summer holidays, weddings, and photos matters. Of course it does. But beneath all that is usually something deeper. They want to feel like themselves again. They want to feel proud of themselves again. They want to stop being at the bottom of their own list. They want to look in the mirror and think, there you are. That's why this matters. It's not shallow. It's not silly. It's because you matter. A simple way to start this week. So if you're listening to this and thinking, right, I do need to change something, let me give you a simple starting point. This week, do these 3 things. 1, pick a habit. Just 1. Not 6, not a full life overhaul, 1 habit. Maybe it's walking every day. Maybe it's eating breakfast. Maybe it's hitting a water target. Maybe it's 2 workouts this week. Maybe it's stopping the all or nothing cycle. Just pick 1. 2, make it obvious and realistic. Decide exactly when you're doing it. Not I'll try, not hopefully, actually decide. For example, I'll go for a 20-minute walk after lunch. I will drink 2 litres of water and fill the bottle twice. I will go do 2 gym sessions this week on Tuesday and Friday. I will eat a proper breakfast before 9 a.m. I will get 8,000 steps every day. Make it clear. 3, track it. Do not underestimate this. Track it. Tick it off. Write it down. Put it in your notes. Use a habit tracker. Because what gets tracked gets noticed. And when you can see yourself doing well, then it builds momentum. And that's how habits grow. Not from motivation alone, from momentum. So, to wrap this up, if you're fed up of always being the one who puts yourself last, I just want to remind you of this. You do not need to wait until everything is calmer. You do not need it. You do not need to do it perfectly. You do not need to prove anything by making it harder than it needs to be. That's it. And yes, that can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you spent years putting everyone else first. But that discomfort does not mean it's wrong. It means it's different. And sometimes different is exactly what is needed. So start small, start realistic, start messy if you need to, but start. Because the longer you spend waiting to feel ready, the longer you stay stuck in the same cycle. And if this episode hits home for you and you're sat there thinking, I know I need some help with this, then that is exactly why I offer my free 7-day Kickstart. It's designed to help you build some momentum, put a few simple habits in place, get some quick wins, and most importantly, see whether it's the right fit for you. And then from there, if you want more structure, accountability, and support, that's where my 12-week summer shape-up comes in. That's for women who are ready to stop drifting and actually have a plan. A plan around their food, their routine, their movement, their habits, and their accountability. So they can lose weight, feel more confident, and actually start putting themselves back on the list again. If that sounds like something you need, message me, apply through the link, or reach out and let's have a chat. Because you do not need to keep doing this alone. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Comeback Conversations. And if it resonated, send it to another woman who needs to hear it too. I'll speak to you later.